some of the good companies like Baker, Kittinger, um, companies like that would still make it out of mahogany or walnut.
Okay.
But then they went to veneers, and then we went to finishes. So today, you rarely are going to get a mahogany wood. You'll get a mahogany finish.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Capital Vintage Charm School. Today we have Mark Boltinghouse from Mark Boltinghouse Antiques and Appraisals here to talk to us about an intro into wood furniture. Mark, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so sweet. So, Mark, I have to tell you, I don't normally interview experts in subject areas. So I'm a little nervous about this today because most of the folks are just sort of collectors. So anyway, I do very much appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Mark, can we start at the very beginning here? Could you kind of give us an overview of how a piece of furniture would be made in terms of, is the wood the color? Is it the stain that's the color? Do you understand what I'm asking?
I do, and it varies per century. If you go back to, let's say, the 17th century, late 17th, when the Dutch were introducing inlays, they would have maybe like an oak carcass or body,
Okay.
and then they would do their fine woods like pear or um, walnut. They would have special woods, even colored woods, and they do their beautiful inlays of flowers and vases and so forth. Um, well, again, it all goes back to where you are. Um, Today, furniture, I wish I had more time. When you get into like the early 20th century, some of the good companies like Baker, Kittinger, um, companies like that would still make it out of mahogany or walnut.
Okay.
But then they went to veneers, and then we went to finishes. So today, you rarely are going to get a mahogany wood. You'll get a mahogany finish.
Oh, so the
Yes,
wood would be something cheaper
I don't even know what the wood is.
or whatever, and then
Yeah,
they could just put the veneer or the finish on top.
right. More likely, it's just a finish. It's not even a veneer. It's a finish, and you'll have a choice when you order. Let's say a chair, you can order. You can get it in the mahogany finish. You can get a walnut finish. You can get it into whatever finish they call
Right.
mini, but it's not the wood. When they say mahogany, it could still be a veneer or it could be a solid wood. But today you're getting pretty much a finish. Only a few companies still make solid pieces of furniture, and
Wow.
that's Pittenger, but it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
It costs a lot of money.
So is there a way to tell if I'm at an estate sale and I see a table and it's, I don't know, it's kind of red, so I'm thinking maybe it's like a cherry finish. Would there be a way for me to tell, like, this is just the finish or this is the wood or?
You would really need to know your woods.
Oh,
Cherry has a wonderful swirl to it, a redness, like you said, wonderful little swirl with little bitty black dots. You'll see little black dots in them. And right there, I sound like Bob Ross. Little black I can tell immediately where a mahogany can still have a redness to it, but mahogany really is more of a brown wood.
okay.
It is just a simple brown wood, and it should have a linear. Uh, um, I thought it's somebody, but a linear graining. Excuse me.
Okay.
Sometimes I lose track. It's hard for me to sit there and say this is what it's going to be without being there to look at it.
Right.
But today, if you're looking at pretty much a new table, it's not going to be a mahogany, and it's not going to be a cherry. If it's a cherry, they say cherry, and you see cherry, more than likely it's a veneer.
Okay.
Yes.
So is there a way, I feel like, so I get confused, I think, at some of the lighter woods.
Hmm.
I get to maple and
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. Are there certain ones that you think are harder to differentiate between? Or are there any tips for us
Yeah.
to kind of be on
Uh,
the lookout for?
well, people are not familiar with butternut. Butternut
Oh,
is a Canadian. Canadians used it. Canadian butternut and American walnut really look alike to me, alike, totally alike. So it's really hard for me to tell. Yes.
Okay. Are there certain resources that you would suggest for us to kind of look at, to give our eyes a better idea of what we're looking at when we're on the hunt? Are there websites or books or things that you particularly like for this?
Yeah, there is a book out there just on woods. However, um, it shows you all different types of mahogany where, this is a Cuban mahogany, this is American mahogany, this is European mahogany. And that gets a little difficult for people. So here's my suggestion: train your eye. Train
Okay.
your eye. Go to the museums, and where they have mahogany furniture, start paying attention to the grain. Get as close as you can without being chewed out or yelled at like I do. I know I'm bad. I got
Mark, I'll bail you out, I promise.
anyway, go and look at those woods and pay attention to those woods, and they'll tell you what it is. They'll say, "Hi, boy, mahogany, da 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 da." Look at that mahogany. Go to antique stores, all right? And when you read a card on there, hopefully most antique dealers still today have cards that say, let's say George III mahogany chest of drawers. You can look at that mahogany, or they may say walnut. Start training your eye. See what they're talking about. Ask them a question. If an antique dealer does not answer your question regarding woods, they're just being mean.
Really? So
They're just
you don't think
grumpy.
this would be an insulting or
No, I mean, most
inappropriate
antique
question to
dealers
ask?
are like, talk to me about that, talk to me. We want to tell you about this. Yeah, I want to talk to people.
Okay.
Uh, so if they're not willing to talk to you, just walk away from them.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's very helpful. I definitely think that, it's one thing to look around an antique store. It's another, I think, it can be intimidating to be in an antique store and not entirely sure what you're looking at, or not sure if it's worth bothering them, to
Well,
ask questions and stuff.
just understand your audience. If you walk in and there are 7 people in there and they're wanting to talk to him, don't interrupt him to talk to, or her, I should say, because there's a lot of great antique dealers that are women. Don't interrupt them while they may be making a sale. You may not be buying it, but still education. And I also believe that when you educate someone who may not be a buyer that day, tomorrow they may come
Yeah,
and surprise you, and they do.
that's true. That's a very good point. Thank you for that tip, Mark. Um, I feel like anytime people see a piece of mid-century modern furniture, they immediately assume it is teak.
Well, because most of it was made from teak, and they
Okay.
also used rosewood.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So what other woods would it be? And do you have any tips for us to look at something and say, nope, that's not teak?
Well, when I've done appraisals on mid-century modern, I would say 85% of it is teak, and teak was just is a wonderful wood. That's just,
Why?
well, it doesn't get, bugs don't like it. They don't get eaten, and if the
Mm.
grains stay, they're really tight, and the grains stay beautifully tight. There's not a lot of shrinkage in it. It was an easy wood to use, and it's a tropical wood.
Yeah,
It's just grows plentiful,
yeah.
and it is a beautiful wood. It is a beautiful wood, but they just overused it.
So
Uh,
so you said it was rosewood was another one that was pretty
yes,
popular?
rosewood. They used mostly it's going to be rosewood veneer, and even mid-century modern would use a veneer of teak. But mhm, yeah, it may be something that they needed to round off instead of carving the wood. They would use a veneer to
Uh,
round off the edges, things like
Mark,
that.
about what time did that start? Like
Ooh,
time period? Was it
I
a
see it plentiful in the 60s. Maybe it could have started in the early 50s, or excuse me, late 50s. So it went through the 60s, even in the 70s. You saw those 2 decades to really have like the mid-century modern pieces. Um, Then you see it again come the, well, were they reproducing in the 90s? No, they were reproducing in the 20th century. They started using teak again. Anyway, but you see them, you see the teak being used those 2 periods.
when did the time period change to sort of that veneer versus hard full furniture? Was that something that was like the turn of the century?
They've always been using veneers even through the 17th and 18th, 19th and 20th century. But veneers were, uh, believe it or not, it was cheaper to use to make veneer furniture than it was to make solid wood furniture in the 18th century. Even though veneers are beautifully done with the, like I said, you get the shapes of the flowers, the vases, the birds, it was cheaper. Um, when we get into, when I say veneers, in the early 20th century, I would say about 30s, 40s, instead of doing things out of solid mahogany, solid walnut, they would just give you a mahogany veneer over a pine carcass or a softwood, I would say a
Okay.
softwood carcass. Yeah, it's just cheaper. It was a cheaper way of doing it.
That is
And we had to adapt because, we had the crash in 29.
right.
So, they had to start making furniture for no longer the wealthy because the wealthy pretty much was gone. I mean, there were still some great wealthy people, let's face it, but we had to start making for the masses. And they
Right.
did. Like Haywood Wakefield came out with all of their furniture. Way not my taste. Haywood Wakefield, blonde,
Mhm.
wood, yes, not my taste. But it's popular today. They people still buy it. But that was actually started because the government said, we've got our troops coming back from World War II. We've got to get them houses, or we've got to get them furniture. So here's some money, Haywood Wakefield, and let's start making furniture for them. Mhm.
What? That is,
Haywood Wakefield was known for their wicker furniture. They're known for their wicker furniture.
yeah, I did not realize that that was something that the government was involved in. I mean, obviously you hear about the housing and I
Yeah,
mean, even around DC, you see so many of the examples of the different housings that they had here that were, popular at that time period, but I didn't realize that they had gotten involved in furniture like that.
government's very important. Yeah, to get things going. And once government gets things going, it just keeps a loop of manufacturing, so forth and so on. Once they get the money in there, things happen. But
Right.
sometimes you have to prime the well, and that's what they did.
Huh.
Yeah,
That is fascinating. Well, that is an appropriation I can get behind.
exactly.
I want to go back to what you were telling me earlier before we started recording about mid-century modern pieces being reproduced and not in the stamp thing. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, again, and when you had something good, well, let's say everything and anything that was good has been reproduced. I mean, you
Right.
look at French furniture from the 18th century. Stylistically, Louis 15th, Louis 16th, still being reproduced today. They still do it today. When you get into, let's say, the 60s, and you had a great furniture maker, because like Knoll would have a piece, but it would be designed by so and so,
Hmm.
and they would have it stamped, or sometimes it's, and most times it's a stamp, but some like the, is it Norwegian? See, this is not my strong point. Norwegian. Anyway, those countries would have like a little metal stamp on the back of it, and it would just say made in Norwegian or made in, anyway, it would tell you a little bit about the pieces, and then you do your research. Sometimes you would find it where it was stamped by the maker. Now, when that piece got out there and got popular, of course, all the other furniture companies saw this and said, oh, let's reproduce this style. But then they didn't have a stamp on it. Or it could have been done with a lesser wood. Maybe it's a teak front, but your back is cardboard. And we want to get
Oh, okay.
stronger cardboard, but it's a cardboard. Or you don't have beautiful little runners on your drawers. You just have wood, and it's
In there.
yeah, it's in there. So it's, again, all of it gets reproduced. And of course, in the 2000 now, they reproduced all the 60s stuff and the 70s stuff. The mid-century modern pieces are now being reproduced.
Um, so take me through a very basic evaluation that you would do on a piece of furniture. I'm at an estate sale. I'm looking at a dresser.
Mhm.
Um, what sort of things are you looking at to determine if this may be original or if it's a reproduction? I mean, I think for this audience, most of the stuff that we're probably looking at are reproductions, and most of the things that we're going to furnish our homes with are going to be reproductions. But what would be some of the key telltale, like, oh, this might actually be original?
Well, it's, oh, we need more than an hour on that one. It's, okay, first of all, let's start off stylistically. I look at something and said, could it be 18th, 19th, or 20th century? I look at it first. And if that says yes, and then I go in and start evaluating the construction. I
Okay.
want to look, okay, so I know most people are not going to collect 18th century furniture, but for me, I do. And when I look at it, I start looking for the tales of 18th century.
Okay.
Okay, let's say if I saw it and the wood is walnut, I'm like, okay, that's a check. They used walnuts. All right. And then I look for the construction. In the 18th century, they used, most of the time, the secondary wood would be an oak or a pine. And the secondary wood, when I say that, it's like when you pull your drawer out and you see that wood that's lining your drawer that keeps it together, that's a secondary wood. And they would not use expensive wood on a secondary product. If it's hidden, they don't want to use expensive wood. So they will give you pine or oak or something of that. America did poplar. It's a
Okay.
big tree here that goes past. And that would be your secondary wood.
Can
So
I
I
ask you
started,
this really quick, Mark? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would the secondary wood be a soft wood
Mhm.
over versus a hardwood, or does that matter? Like, is
It all
hardwood more
depends, it all
expensive,
depends on, who was making it.
and
Uh,
what the lumber prices were at the time?
another huge, we can have another huge conversation over this, but France had a guild, and that guild set laws. And they had what they called masters, and those masters had to start as children with another master, a master meaning a master carver or a master veneerer or a master dory bronze maker, a master what they called what they called a joiner. And the joiner meant that they put the pieces together for, like, if you're making a chest or chair, they didn't carve it. They just put the woods together, and then they'd send it to a carver. That was another master. And then that carver would take it over to the finisher or the gilder, and they did it. And then they took it over to the upholsterer. And the reason why they did it was it jobs. It kept the jobs, and it kept everybody where they're supposed to be. And the quality of French furniture of the 18th century is some of the highest that you'll ever see. It's because they had a guild, and they copied that again and again and again and again and again. And they made their pieces work. And if you were a master, you had to stamp your furniture with your name. And that's not just for, I signed it, it's a signed piece. It was for the guild to go back and say, okay, it's signed, it's definitely made by him. So he stamped it with his name. He's not responsible for it. If something happens to it, he has to repair it. Yeah, he had to take care of it.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
the guild was really a taxation. It was a taxation. They had to pay taxes on that. But it kept the masters in a group where they could control the furniture making. And that's, again, a whole nother.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is fascinating. And I'm sorry to have interrupted your
But
original.
anyway,
You're looking at this. That is so fascinating. I never thought about it being like this. You need to fix this. You like, this is essentially yours. So now I know who
you're
to
the
go back to.
master.
That's
If it's faulty,
amazing.
you need to fix it. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Oh my
that's why
God, that's amazing.
today, 200, 300 years later, we have French furniture.
Yes.
We can still use it. We can still sit on it. Yeah, it is magical. Now, I understand that everybody during the 18th century copied the French,
Right.
the French taste.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's also going back to construction. I may be looking at what I think is a French chest of drawers. And then I look at the back of it. The back will tell you everything about a piece of furniture.
Okay. How so?
All right. In the 18th century, they just used raw wood to make the backs. All right. And it depends on where the country is. Like the French would frame it out in the back. And it would be whatever the secondary wood they're using would be the back of it, like an oak, something
Okay.
strong. Well, you get into Italy, it is just wood on wood on wood on wood on wood. And it could be up, it could be vertical or horizontal. And it also could be the Italians use nails instead of pegs to put their pieces in. You just, you don't know. You have to look at it. The Germans, oh my gosh, they were, they were, they were just as good as the French when it came to
Really?
construction. Oh my gosh. Because of World War I and World War II, a lot of people don't call the furniture German for the longest time. We're just now calling pieces German again.
What would we call it?
We call it Austrian. We would,
Oh,
maybe it's looks Italian, but the German furniture really stands out. German furniture to me is like the construction is amazing too, just
oh
amazing.
my gosh. Okay,
Oh,
well,
it's on the
Mark, we
backs, like
are
they
gonna
have
be-
the slats,
yeah,
that the drawers would slide on.
uh-huh.
Okay, they would cut a little hole in the back. All right, little hole where they knew that when that wood shrank over the years, 100 years from now, 200 years ago, or 200 from now, that there would be a little indention or it would stick out just a little bit. So they cut that hole out, expecting the shrinkage to happen. Yeah, yeah. So you'll pull
Amazing.
the German furniture back and you'll see that those little cutouts. And you're like, oh yeah, they're amazing,
That
amazing.
is amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, so the back, that is a really good tip to look at the back. I think a lot of people just kind of look at the front, open the drawer, and just move on with it. What other things would you be looking for? Would you be looking, so when you said how it's constructed, you would look at like
Yes.
the grooves of how it was actually put together?
Dovetailing on the drawers. I look at that. I look at the size of the dovetailings. But the key is for most of the 18th century furniture, well, almost, I say pretty much all, except for some of the English pieces, they were very anal about their carving. Anyway, it's a whole other subject. All right, we can go on. I look for pegs. They would take and drill holes into the wood and wherever they were joining. They have a joint, and they would join the piece together. And then to keep it together, there were no glue. There was not. They could have put on some rabbit hair glue, but they would take a peg and they would pop it in, a wood peg, and put it in. And the carve. Oh, I wish I could show you this, but where the hole was, the one hole was a little higher than the other. So when they put the peg in, it brought them together. Yes.
Oh,
Yes, and so that's why you have a tight joint. And over the years, the wood shrink, the peg shrinks, and so they get loose. All you have to do is reglue them or put some glue in, bam, you're ready to go. But yeah, that's how they constructed these unbelievable pieces.
so from an appraiser's point of view, if you saw something like that and would you be able to tell it was reglued?
No, it's hard to tell things like
But it
that.
wouldn't like
And
affect
it
its value.
doesn't affect it.
Okay.
No, but I can tell you this, if you see a perfect 17th, 18th century piece of furniture, it's perfect. There's no cracks, there's no veneer missing, there's no this, it's been restored. I promise you, it's been restored. Rarely do I get something that say, well, it's been down in the basement for 200 years, the sun never touched it, nobody ever used it, and it's a perfect condition. I'm like, mhm,
Uh-huh. It was in the original packing crate
that's right. That's right.
at my grandparents' chateau.
That's right. They never used it. It was
Yeah.
in that far east wing. Nobody ever.
That's right. It's one of our outbuildings in the field, right? So I think one of the things too, when looking at antiques and well, vintage, I guess at this point, furniture that is sometimes a little unsure about are some of the like the bugs, honestly.
Mhm.
What sort of things should we be looking for to know like, oh, that's got an infestation or that had worms or anything like that? What are your thoughts on that? What are we looking for?
Okay. Let's start with not all bug damage is bad. All right.
Okay.
Let's start there. Because if I go and look at a 17th or 18th century Italian piece of furniture and it doesn't have little wormholes in it, it's not real.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. 'Cause how could it have survived that long without?
Yeah. And continental furniture more than likely would have had some type of infestation because let's face it, at that time, they washed their floors by hands and they took a bucket of water, they threw it on the floor and they scrubbed it down. And some of the dampness got in the back of the furniture that they didn't get to. They didn't wipe it up. So, and those bugs love the dampness. And so they'll find a way. They just do. Now, if I look at something, like for instance, I bought a piece of furniture, an 1720 Chester drawers, a commode, a French commode. And I noticed that when I placed it in my house, there was like a little dusting on the floor, still dusting. That's a sign that your worms are still alive, okay? Because most of the time you can take them and freeze them and kill them. You know, most people freeze them. What I do is that it's very simple today. I take it, I buy some of those bug bombs that you get at Target,
Okay.
all right? And I throw them in, each of them gets in a drawer, close the drawer after I set them off, throw some plastic over it, and just hit them and bomb them, all right? If I continue to see little bugs or little, what I call little, it's like seeing really fine, uh, okay, after you cut a board, you know,
Uh-huh.
the saw, you see those little saw, what do you call it, sawdust?
Yes.
If you see something like that, but finer, if you continue seeing that, that means they're still moving. Because they, as they carve, they push the stuff out onto the ground.
Oh.
Yes. They're really clever characters. But again, you just get some bug bombs, throw some plastic over it, and walk away. And if you continue seeing them, do it again. Do it again until they're gone.
So a hole would indicate a worm or a bug or both.
They're called worms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are beetles out there that can get into wood. They make a bigger hole. It's more like a shaft. What I do with them is I will take WD-40 and a long tube, and I just shove it in their hole and I squirt it and kill them. Yeah.
That is such a good tip too.
Mhm.
So there's no specific bug bombs that we need to be buying. It's just the regular old stuff.
Yeah, just do
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
And if
And
you get like smaller items, if you get, sometimes they get a little box and you still see some worm dust, just take it and put it in the freezer. Keep it in there for 24 hours. It will kill them.
that's so 24 hours.
Yeah.
We don't need to. I've seen some things that are like do it for a week or anything. You think 24 hours is
And
sufficient?
yeah, but like if I think I have something and I want to kill it, it's a bigger piece, and I don't want to bomb it, I'll take it, I'll put it in my van, and during the winter time when we get those nasty cold freezes, it kills them.
In there. Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah.
We're all going to be shoving furniture in our. People are going to be passing by
These
our
streets are-
driveways. What are these people doing? Like, don't mind me, neighbor. Just trying to kill all the bugs in my dresser.
Oh my God, I started another trend. Okay, here we go.
I love it. I love it. We'll call it we're marking our furniture. There you go.
That's it. There we go. Yeah.
So what if you okay, so you find a piece of furniture and it's kind of banged up. What's the first thing you're gonna do? Are you gonna use a certain kind of like cloth to clean it up, to take a look at it? Are you gonna use a certain chemical or pledge? Like what are you doing to
Oh, stay away from pledge. Don't ever use pledge. No,
why?
no. I would say just use Swiffer sweepers when you dust. Don't put that, because it's just chemical. It's chemical on your stuff.
So don't use any kind of wood cleaner on these.
No,
ever.
just use, see, if you get something that's like a scuff on a piece of furniture, go get Gojo. It's a hand cleaner, okay? And don't get anything, don't get the one with the grit, just get the simple one. And you can take a Q-tip, if it's just a scuff on something, and take a Q-tip and just rub it in there, rub it out. It works beautifully because Gojo really does help clean furniture. I've used it on 18th century furniture to get the dirt off, the years of dirt on things, and it gets back down to the wood. But you still have to be careful about what you do. You have to take a Q-tip, go and do a little area, wipe it off, see what it does to it. If you see it's taking off too much of the finish, stop. And don't do it on the front. You know, do it somewhere on the back or the side where people are not going to see. Just do a little bit. If you don't see any damage or you don't see any changes, just use it. That's what I use.
That is such a good tip. I've never used that product. I've never thought to use.
Yeah, it's really good for cleaning. But again, it will raise the dirt off of like if you have a walnut piece of furniture, again, a commode, not a toilet, a commode, which is a chest of drawers in France. I would take all the hardware off of it and just slather it all on there and then wipe it off. And I would get back down to the walnut walnut color instead of being really dark. Because something from 1720, it's already 300 years old.
Right.
It's had all the years the dust on and the
Yeah.
dust on and the dust on it, so it gets into the pores of the wood.
Oh, that's such a good tip.
And
How,
don't forget to wax your furniture. Your good furniture still needs to be waxed
how
at least
often?
about every 2 years.
Okay.
If you have it by a window, it has a lot of sun, want to wax it more often.
Do you have a favorite wax that you
Yeah,
recommend?
French wax. I just love French wax. And if it's a walnut, you want to use like a walnut stain in your wax if you want to. If you don't, they come with clear. And you just put it on, wipe it off, just keep it supple. And during the wintertime, when we don't have a lot of humidity in the wintertime here, and it's really takes havoc on your antique furniture, just take some water and put it in a container and slide it underneath it. Keep the water, keep the container filled over the winter months, because within like 2 weeks that water will be gone. Your furniture will absorb that. It'll suck it up and it'll keep it hydrated.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good tip.
Yeah, if you come to my house and you look underneath, you're going to see all these containers. People are like, what the heck is he doing?
I love it, Mark. We're gonna be like, your tree's over there. Why are you watering your furniture? Like, he's just
These little tins.
winter's gotten to him. He's storing furniture in his car outside.
Oh my God, when you put it like that, oh my God, I am crazy.
That is such a good tip. So when you say a good piece of furniture, do you mean basically anything that you're just hoping to keep for a while, to keep waxed and hydrated like that? I mean, I have things that are not, I would not consider antique, but like things that my grandparents had that I want to make
Love
sure.
it. If you love it, take care of it.
Yeah.
It would take you maybe 20 minutes to do it, because you just slather it on and wipe it off, and that's it. That's it. Doesn't,
Mark.
it's I always say I save it for a rainy day or a cold, nasty day or something like that, where you just go up there with a glass of wine and wax, and you just
I love it. I used to always polish my silver on the first snow day of the year.
see,
My
yeah,
husband
you understand that.
always tease me. He's like, oh, we got our first snow. Here comes the polishing.
I love that.
That was like my tradition. I would like make hot chocolate, tea, whatever, and then just get after it.
Yes,
And
exactly.
then I was ready usually for, whatever the year was, because here in DC,
I call that therapy. That's my
I do
therapy.
too. I
Yeah.
do too. I put my headphones in. I don't want to be talked to.
Mhm.
Oh, it is therapy. So we mentioned this earlier. So I think the museum thing is a fantastic idea and something that I'd never considered, but are there other resources that you would recommend? Books or different things that would be a good primer for us to look at, or websites or anything else that you think would be helpful for us to kind of start training our eye?
Well, yes, I'm sorry, my brain is like, okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I've got a lot of books, and most of them are like um, early 20th century books on furniture, because I feel that they're truer in their write-ups about the pieces. There's something about the earlier books that give me that. I say before you start anything, find out what you want to do, what you want to collect, start training yourself on them, especially woods. If you decide you want to do mid-century modern, all right, start figuring out what's their woods that they use and start training on that, because there are hundreds of woods out there, all right? And it can get confusing for someone who's just starting out. I say pick what you want to collect right now, stay here, and start learning what woods they use, and then start learning what those woods look like.
That is such a good tip. So focus on the time period first.
What
and
you
then-
want to do. Now you may spread out as you get older. Maybe you want to start collecting, I don't know, let's say you want to start collecting from mid-century modern to 18th century furniture. All right, where do you want to go from there? What woods did they use then? And then focus on those woods. All right,
Okay.
get your books, because there's books out there that you can purchase. But again, some of those books are they're just so much information. that
Sure.
even I look at it going, there's too much there. I just want to know what American walnut looks like or American mahogany looks like. Give me a sign. Um, but they give you so many variations of it, and you look at it going, that looks brown to me. That's all I see is brown.
Right. Well, and it's
Pick
funny,
your area and focus.
I think in the design community, they would, I would say probably in the like what last 3 years, woods really made the comeback. I mean, it used to be white furniture and you didn't have dark woods in your house. And so I think hopefully as we continue to see that trend of, the brown wood being back in our homes,
It
uh,
is back. It's back with a fury.
and I'm thankful for it. I mean, I think there's just you can't replace that kind of warmth in your home and in your
No, and it does. I mean, I can have a tiny room in a house and I still want to have big brown furniture in it because it
yes,
makes it cozy.
it
Yeah.
does. It
I've
does.
got a armoire upstairs. It's a 17th century, early 18th century Louis the 14th armoire.
Mm.
And it's gargantuan. It's huge. Luckily it comes apart. That's a good thing about 18th century furniture. You can take it apart. And I got it up there, put it together, and this makes the room cozy, cozy.
So there truly is no excuse for us to have IKEA furniture if some of these antiques come apart. All right, Mark.
Just like right now at the op shop, there is what we call a bibliothèque. It's a beautiful carved oak cabinet with glass fronts. It's for books. You can use it for books. You can have it for linen. You can have it in your kitchen, fill it full of groceries for all I care, or china or porcelain. It's $850 for that piece. And it dates back to 1810. Yes, you can buy that cheaper than you can at IKEA and have it for the rest of your life.
Okay, well, that might have just been sold to me. Don't be surprised if I pop in on Friday. Well, Mark, if you have a quick minute, I'd love to ask you a couple of questions that I ask
Sure.
everybody on this so we can get to know you a little bit
You
better.
got it.
What is your China pattern? I can see it behind you. What?
Old Paris.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Well, it's, let's see. Very simple. I mean, I do like myosin because you'll see myosin up there, but that's my favorite. Simple, and they came in different colors. This dates around 1830 and supposedly was made for a Baltimore family. Yeah, but people had money back then. They were exporting from France. And it did at one time have a big P right there. Here, I'll show you.
Oh, I love that.
They had their initials. Here's something that it's part of the set, but was rarely used. And it's a picture. It's the P.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
But they came in different colors. There was pinks, there was it yellows? Yeah, pinks, yellows. Yeah, they came in different colors. I love this stuff. I
Did
can't
you
get enough of it.
see it and decide that you wanted it, or had you seen it in a catalog or something at an auction and said, "Oh, I want to start how did you decide to collect this?"
Oh, my business partner, Don, collected it too. And I fell in love. And he had, this is a simple pattern. Old Paris has so many different patterns. They copied Sèvres. Sèvres was a porcelain that was for the wealthy of France during the 18th and 19th and 20th century. But they were simpler. It's a thicker, hardier,
Yeah.
and it's a hard paste. It's not a porcelain, it's a hard paste. But yeah, he had it. I fell in love with it. We used it. I still use it,
Do
even
you
though
use it
yeah,
for special occasions or pretty often?
if I want to, slap some meatloaf on there, you darn right I'll do it. I'm a firm believer that if you can't use your stuff, you get rid of it. But you better be using it. Don't put it in the counters. Don't just leave it as beautiful little something somethings. Use it.
I agree.
If it gets broken, you cry a little bit, but you get over it.
Well, I had a conversation with somebody else on this, and they were like, look, now that we have eBay and Etsy and all of these resources available to us, you break the dish, you go buy a new one.
Yeah.
It's not what it used to be, where it was really hard to source these items.
Right.
And I think that that's such an important point to keep in the back of our minds, that most of this you can find online now, So
Mhm.
you break the glass, go buy a new one.
Exactly.
It's
I
no
mean,
different than going to
I mean,
Amazon.
we don't want to do that. You know, I know we don't want to break our stuff. And it's like glasses. I'm the first one to break them.
I am
So
too.
I stopped using my good ones and I went to, it was online, where is it? Bed? No, Crate and Barrel? Crate and Barrel.
Yeah.
And they have
Oh,
all
I
this
do
stuff.
love theirs.
I just bought tons of red wine and white wine glasses. And now when they get broken, I'm like, who
Whatever.
cares?
It doesn't matter, right? What are you currently on the search for your home? What are you hoping?
Knoll sofa. All right. Now there's a difference between like Knoll, which is Knoll. That's contemporary. The Knoll sofa I'm looking for is Knole. And it is the other word for it, or other name for it, is called a ratchet arm sofa.
Okay.
Now, the reason why they call it Knoll, because the style began at Knoll House in England. All right, in the 17th century, it began, and that style became popular during the 17th and 18th, and they still reproduce it today. You'll see in a contemporary version where the arms and the backs are the same height, and sometimes they go down. They go down.
Yes.
Ratchet arm. I want, if I could find a 19th century one in good condition, that's what I'm looking for. And you know, I get outbidded on them constantly. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I do. There's a lot of cuss words in there when
Uh,
that's what I'm looking for right now.
okay. What is your favorite find?
My favorite
I
font.
know this has got to be a hard question.
Yeah, because there was a lot of, I mean, I try to keep as much as I possibly can. You know, when people offer you money for them, you're like, oh God, okay. All right. No, I am an antique dealer. God, that's hard because, you know, my Louis the 14th armoire, that was a great find. I just recently purchased a 16, probably about 1680s, 1690 to about 1700 painting of a little boy with his dog. Oh yeah, it's a beautiful, and it's in, I can't say it's the original frame, but I can tell you it's a 17th century frame. And it's unbelievable, in beautiful condition, beautiful condition.
What did you not buy that haunts you?
Oh, a lot, but the worst one was there was a pair of George III painted settees, sofas that came up in an auction. And I was ready to buy them. And I was like, again, I'm ready to spend like $3,000-4,000 to get them. They're rare. I forgot.
Oh no!
And the worst part was they went for $500.
Oh no!
Mhm. Yeah, that's when you just take a knife and you're just like,
Oh, you're like, I can't.
yeah. So now when I think about it, I still get goosebumps. It's like,
So do you set calendar reminders now for your
yeah,
office?
on my phone. Yeah, if there's something there, or on my computer, I have it where a little star will come up and say, hey, you've got this, or here's your pictures that's coming up. Yeah.
Oh, it's a hard lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
What would you rather do? Go to an estate sale or a flea market?
Ooh, that's hard because you know you just don't know if it's a good estate sale. I'm going to be there first before flea market. Yeah, and good estate sales are rare for me.
Really?
Mhm.
Do you, I don't know how to ask this. Do you not think the ones here have been good lately or just good at all?
Well, there's so many of them. You can go to uh, estate sales, DC estate sales,
Right.
and look up what's coming up. And a lot of them, I don't know if they know what good is or they just want to sell. But I'm a firm believer, if you have something good, those pictures should come up first. You should entice me to come
Yes.
see it. Because I'm not going to drive 30, 45, 50 miles to go look at something I don't see that's there. Entice me to get there. All right. There hasn't been a lot of photographs that I see that entice me to go see it. They may have a beautiful house and it may be in Bethesda, and you're like, okay, that's a good sign, Bethesda. And then they
Right.
open
Good
it up,
neighborhood. I'm there. Right.
and they open it up, and it looks like the Golden Girls live there. So right now, I'm not looking for Golden Girl furniture. I'm sorry. No.
There
Like,
was
no.
one this weekend in Fairfax Station, maybe.
Okay.
Um, I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old and I have a little girl who's about to turn 1. So my weekends are just
Yay. You're-
blown apart. Like I have nothing. I have no time at all. But I was living vicariously through everybody. And it was one of the first one. It looked like it was, I don't want to say expensive. It looked like it was accurately priced, maybe for what it was. But they had a lot of things. And I thought, oh, I hope this means that we're kind of starting to come back. I feel like COVID just, I don't know,
It devastated us.
it just was not, the state sale scene has just not been good here lately.
No, it hasn't. But right before COVID, there was a really good one out in Arlington. And apparently these were really good collectors. And I bought, again, I always get shocked when I get these things. There was a bureaucrat, a desk,
Mhm.
and it was 19th century, probably around 1880s, which is not normally my love. I like it to be earlier, but this was designed in the French taste, Louis XV style, Burrow Woods, and it was signed by Howard and Sons, who were a very famous furniture maker in England. And it was stamped and had the original paper label on it. Yeah, it was in the bedroom. And I'm looking and go, great, I'm gonna go after this. And there was another, I'm not gonna tell you what I spent on it, but it was another, how did I get that for that little? Yeah, and it's now in my living room. Where
That's
it's,
good for you.
yeah,
I find it hard to keep things that I,
it's,
because I know I can get things for it. And I'm like, oh,
well, if you love what you're purchasing, that's what you always should do. Only buy what you love. Don't think I'm going to make money off of this and not love it, because you won't.
right.
You won't. It'll sit somewhere. The thing is, always try to keep something.
Yeah.
Because it makes you happy. It does. It's not materialistic things. That's not why I buy these. I walk by them and see them as art, and they
Right.
make me happy. So don't sell every bit of it. Keep something.
So a lot of people that I talk to that do resell like to say that they foster items. And
Yeah.
I think that's fun because like I'll keep it for a year and then I'm kind of tired of looking at it and then I sell it, but
Me
like,
too. Yeah. For
but
caretakers.
I'll clean it up. I'll make it look good. I'll make it feel good about itself and then I send it back out into the world.
Right.
I'm just like fostering these pieces.
We all are. I mean, let's face it. We're
Yeah.
all fostering. But I believe that if I get them and I can bring them back to life, for instance, I bought a pair of chairs that are Régence, which is a period where Louis XIV dies. Louis XV is only 5 years old. So the Duc d'Orléans becomes regent of France. So this is a great period. It was a great period for furniture. Not that they did anything to it. It was just a wonderful time. It's coming from the very heavy carved to now the refined French that we know. Anyway, but these chairs were a copy from 1910. Beautiful gilt carving, so forth. I'd gotten them. The bodies were weak. They had been painted. People had this idea if they took bronze paint and they put it over the areas where it chipped, then it made it look pretty. It doesn't. So I took it all back, stripped them down, got back down to the original gilt, stopped the process of stripping, and did my tightening of the body, then had them reupholstered. They're gorgeous. And
Oh,
they're ready for the next person. Because when I die 100 years from now, somebody will be able to appreciate those and love them, and they're going to go on for another 100 years easily.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you a thrift store guy? Do you do thrift stores around here?
I say don't underestimate thrift stores, because you may walk in there one day and see, again, like, how do they get this? Because people bring in stuff.
Yeah.
Bring in stuff. Like the op shop where I spend my time. Somebody came in with a consignment and we pulled open the box and there is a Chinese imperial robe from the 19th century. 5-toed dragon, it's blue silk with gold threads. I'm like, how did you get this? I got on the phone, called her, like, how did you get this? Where did you get this? And she said, well, my grandfather was in China when I was a little girl and they brought this back and it's been in the family. Yeah, you never know what comes to that door. I got that price, hung it on a wall. And within a day, it was fought over. Yeah, they
Oh,
wanted
I
it.
bet.
Yeah.
I bet. What is your most prized family heirloom?
Oh, my second century Roman bust. I have a
Who
marble.
had it? What's the story with it?
It came, well, Don, who was my business partner, he was really family to me. He was like a dad to me. And I got that from him.
Oh,
And it was in his collection for years and years and years. And he was like, you know, never sell this. This is your gift. It's something that you'll always remember me by. And so, yeah, I love it. It's in my bedroom.
that is so sweet. Mark, I cannot thank you enough for this today. This was so incredibly helpful. And if nothing else, I think that you have helped make antique stores a little bit more approachable for the average person, which I think they can be pretty intimidating. So I think that your tips and your thoughts on how to start training our eye is so helpful. And I really, really cannot thank you enough.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.